Today we're gonna make 3 of my favorite bruschetta recipes. We've got Greek bruschetta with whipped feta, tomato balsamic bruschetta, and mushroom bruschetta. They're so easy to make and loaded with flavor. You're gonna love them. This Greek bruschetta has a layer of light and creamy whipped feta topped with a Greek-inspired mixture of juicy tomatoes, cucumber, and red onion along with fresh herbs. It's all served on top of a crisp crostini. Plus, this recipe is ready in just 20 minutes and it can be prepped ahead of time. So what do you say? Let's get to it. The first thing we're gonna start with is making the crostini. So crostini just means little toast. So I like to slice the baguette a little bit on the bias, which just means a little diagonal, because that gives us a little more surface area to work with when we add our toppings. Okay, they're all sliced up, so I'm gonna show you my little cheater method for getting the olive oil on the slices of baguette so that they can toast up really nice. So I just take my olive oil and do a little drizzle across. We don't need them drenched, just a light coating is fine. So I am getting quite a bit on the pan as well, just how it's happening, but that's okay because we're just gonna zhuzh it around just a little bit. And that gets each side lightly coated. You can move it around where there are globs of olive oil. And this way, you don't have to get a pastry brush dirty. Just do it quick and easy. It is not anything that you need to fuss over. Once they're all pretty well coated, again, they do not need to be drenched. We'll just sprinkle on a little pinch of salt. You don't need too much, just a little goes a long way since we'll be topping these with lots of deliciousness. Now we're gonna pop them in a 375-degree oven for about 12 to 14 minutes and flip them halfway through until they're golden brown and crispy. To make the veggie mixture that's going to go on top of our Greek bruschetta, we're gonna start with 1.5 cups of diced cucumber. I like using an English cucumber because they are pretty seedless and they don't have any of that bitter flavor that sometimes you can get with cucumbers. Then we're gonna slice 1.5 cups of cherry or grape tomatoes. I recommend using a serrated knife because it helps slice through the skin without smushing them. I also like to use cherry or grape tomatoes because if you use a whole tomato, it can sometimes be a little too juicy for the bruschetta mixture. So we're using a red onion for this recipe because it adds like a really bright punch. If you're not a fan of raw red onion, I would recommend either soaking it in a little bit of water to kind of temper out the bite that comes from red onions, or you can go ahead and dice up a shallot, which will be a more mild, a little bit sweeter onion flavor to the mixture. So we're using a mixture of fresh and dried herbs for this recipe, starting with 2 tablespoons of fresh parsley, 1 tablespoon of fresh mint, which really brightens it up, along with fresh basil, which I love basil. Then we also have dried oregano. Now, why are we using dried oregano and not fresh? Well, quite frankly, because I think dried oregano is a lot more accessible for people than getting fresh oregano. If you want to use fresh oregano, please do. I would recommend doubling the amount since dried herbs are more potent than fresh herbs since they're more concentrated. You want to double if you're going from dried to fresh or have it. So if you want to use dried herbs in this recipe, be sure you have the amounts of these fresh herbs. So chop the herbs just fine enough so that they will blend into the bruschetta mixture. So we'll add the fresh herbs, and then we'll add the dried oregano and red pepper flakes, which gives it a nice little kick. Now we need to also add fresh garlic, and you can mince this by hand, but my favorite tool to use, like ever, I use it in pretty much every recipe, is my garlic press. It is the best one out there. Trust me on this, you'll have to try it. Okay, so you can take the whole garlic clove, stick it in. You don't have to remove the paper, which makes it so easy. Go ahead and press it in. It's perfectly minced, super fine. I use a knife to just cut it off. And then this one comes with a special tool to just take the paper out. I will link this below if you need to get yourself one. We're using 2 to 3 garlic cloves. This can really depend on your preferences though. I absolutely love garlic, so I would lean towards 3, but it also just depends on the size of your cloves. Okay, and to bring it all together, we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, the juice of half a lemon, which really brightens it up. And then we'll do a pinch of salt. And you can obviously do that to taste as well. And then we will mix it all up and set this aside while we go make our whipped feta. To make the whipped feta, you definitely want to use a food processor. It will make the spread super smooth, light, and creamy. So we're gonna start with a block of feta cheese. We'll have 8 ounces, and it breaks apart really easily. I like to just break it apart and put it in. So this makes sure that it's easier for it to get all mixed up in there. So we've got our feta. We're going to add a little lemon zest to keep things bright. I like to use a microplane here and just lightly press it along the edge. Don't press too hard, because if you get that white pith underneath, it can be bitter sometimes. So don't press too hard, just get that lemon zest, the yellow part off of there. Tap it, because it likes to get stuck underneath. And we're going to add some Greek yogurt. Add that in. Some more garlic. I told you we love garlic for this recipe, so 2 cloves can just go in because the food processor will smooth them out. You might need to scrape down the sides as it goes to make sure it all gets blended up. Okay, and I'm gonna add 1 tablespoon of milk to start to kind of thin things out and keep it going. While we're at it, a little scrape of the sides. Okay, let's check it out. There we go. It's nice and smooth, creamy, and ready to go on the crostini. Now that we have our Greek bruschetta topping ready, our whipped feta, and our crostini, it's time to assemble. So grab your crostini, put a dollop of whipped feta on top. You can spread it across. If you don't want to assemble the crostini, this recipe is also great served as a dip. Just put the whipped feta in a bowl, top it with the veggies, and let your guests make their own crostini or just dip away. there we have it. Now it's time to dig in and enjoy. It's so perfect. It has everything, the crunchy crostini, the creamy whipped feta, and then that veggie mixture is bright and fresh, but tangy and bitey from that red onion. Oh, it's everything. It's so perfect. We are making my tomato balsamic bruschetta on crostini. It is loved by readers. It's perfect to bring to gatherings because it's naturally vegan, but it's so flavorful that everybody's gonna love it. Let's get started. Let's make the crostini. I've got a massive baguette here. We're gonna slice it up. All right, let's get this out of the way. Maybe not over there. Now we'll pop them in the oven to get crispy on each side, so we'll flip them about halfway through. Now for the tomato mixture, we've got some cherry tomatoes here. You could also use grape if it's what you can find. Now, the key with the tomatoes, okay, hang on, what do I want to say? Now, using cherry tomatoes reduces the juiciness that's going to be in the mixture. If you have extra juicy tomatoes, I'd recommend either just taking out that like mushy seedy part so that your mixture isn't too juicy, or placing the chopped tomatoes over a strainer, and that will help that excess liquid drain out so that the tomato mixture isn't overly wet. Dice it up in a small dice and use a serrated knife because that will really cut through the skin of the tomato without smashing it. Okay, and then we'll continue until we've got about 2 cups. This is a really forgiving recipe, so you can absolutely, adjust it as needed. Next up, we're gonna chop the shallot. You'll need about a tablespoon, but again, this recipe is super forgiving, so add as much or as little as you like. And just make sure it's really finely diced so that it incorporates really well into the tomatoes. Whew. All right, it's getting to me. Oh, okay. Add the shallot to the tomatoes and then go wipe your eyes. All right, I'll be back. All right, I'm recovered from the shallot, so now it's time for garlic. Add about 3 garlic cloves to this recipe. You know I do love my garlic press, but I'm gonna finely chop them, mostly because my garlic press is dirty. Now, this recipe is my mom's, technically. She would make this all the time growing up for parties, and she's a huge fan of flavor. It's probably where I get it. Loves garlic. So yeah, there's 3 raw garlic bulbs in this bruschetta. But I think that's what makes it super freaking delicious. So chop it pretty fine. So now we're gonna add it in as well. And now for the basil. So I like to do about a 1/2 cup. Yes, this basil is looking a little sad. It didn't quite fare so well in my cup of water, but that's okay because we are just gonna slice it up and no one will be able to tell. Now to cut it into really fine strips, an easy way to do it is to pile the basil all together. So I'll do this a couple times since I have so much. Roll it up as well as you can. And then thinly slice it. Voila. All right, now the thing that is going to set your bruschetta apart from all the others is a super high quality balsamic vinegar. Trust me, don't buy the stuff at the grocery store. Not to sound pretentious, but it actually matters here because it adds the most flavor. So I recommend an aged balsamic. Like this one is an 18-year-old. It sounds kind of weird, I know. Even like a 25-year-old aged balsamic, it's truly like what's going to take your bruschetta over the top. So we'll add about 2 tablespoons. It should be nice and thick and like almost syrupy. And then on a similar note, a high quality olive oil will also just really make sure that it's all really great. And then a little salt, naturally. Then we'll stir it up, get everything soaked together. Oh, it's so pretty. It smells so good too. Okay, so I would recommend taking a little taste test. Just grab a tomato. And obviously the longer it sits, the more the flavor develops. It's great, it just needs a little more salt. But don't let it sit too long because those tomatoes are gonna get juicy and then it's gonna get really liquidy. Okay. All right, let's top the crostini. And then if you want to take a little drizzle of that balsamic that's cooling at the bottom, it'll soak into the bread. It's just so good. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to dig in. This is seriously one of my favorite recipes and it smells so good. There's a lot of chewing. It's perfection. The bright tomatoes, all that basil, that high quality balsamic paired with the punchy shallot and garlic. While it's the perfect summer appetizer, it's also great around the holidays. There's really no wrong time to make it. So good. This is my go-to appetizer for when the weather turns chilly. It's got Gruyere cheese on this crispy crostini. It's hearty, it's savory. It's gonna be an appetizer that everybody loves. Plus, it's pretty darn easy to make too. So let's get started. I rinse the mushrooms really quick and then I like to just take a paper towel and wipe off any excess dirt. It does take a few more minutes, but I find that it's worth it. Now that they're clean, let's chop them. So think about bruschetta, they're gonna go on top of those crostini. They are gonna cook down though. We still want kind of smaller bite-sized pieces. If you wanna make it super quick, you could throw them in a food processor and chop them a few times, but I'm gonna do it by hand today. I like to chop it in half and then make little slices. And then do it crossways. So it's just a fine dice. It does not have to be exact. Next, it's time to chop our shallots. So I've got 3 here. You'll want about a cup total. The first thing I like to do with shallots is cut off the top and the root end of it. And then really gently take my knife and cut through the paper. So then I can just peel it off. And then we can chop this. So I cut it in half to make a flat surface, and then I make planks. And then I can finally dice it, and my eyes are very much watering. Oh my gosh, why are they so bad? Some onion goggles. Okay, I'm gonna go take care of myself. Now final piece of prep is we're gonna chop some fresh thyme, which adds such a good flavor. Thyme and mushrooms together is one of my favorite combinations. Oh, it smells so good. I haven't used thyme in a long time. Let's give it a good chop. Time to shred our Gruyere cheese. I definitely recommend shredding it by hand because it melts so much better when you do. There's no anti-caking agents on it, so it just is so beautiful. All right, got every last bit. Toss the rind, and we'll set this aside to put on our crostini. Smells cheesy. I mean, all right. Batter's up. Now for the crostini. We have a massive baguette. Yours does not have to be this large. You'll want about 18 to 20 slices. Drizzle again. Now you can do a sprinkle of salt and pepper if you really like, but because the Gruyere cheese is salty, we're gonna have our mushroom topping. I'm just gonna let them toast up just like this. So we'll put them in the oven for a few minutes to get their initial golden brownness before we add the cheese. Now for the mushroom mixture. If you've made any of my mushroom recipes before, then you know most of the time I love cooking mushrooms in a dry skillet to start. So that's exactly what we're gonna do here. It makes sure that all the water evaporates out of the mushrooms so then they can soak up all the yummy flavor we're adding. So spread them in an even layer. The pan's over about medium-high heat, and as they begin to cook, you'll start to hear them sizzle and you'll see all that water come up. That water is bubbling out now, so it's about time we can give it a stir, and they'll come up pretty easily here. And then I'll also add a pinch of salt, which will encourage more of that water to come out. And of course, it starts to layer in that flavor. Even layer again. And we'll let it keep doing its thing. The water's all evaporated out, so now let's melt in the butter. All right, the butter's melted. So now it's time for the shallot. And we'll also do another pinch of salt and red pepper flakes. They add a really nice flavor. If you don't like them, you can leave them out. And then a little freshly ground black pepper too. Now we'll let it saute for a few minutes to get those shallots nice and soft and so flavorful. Now we'll press in the garlic. You could chop the garlic as well, like when you're chopping everything else, but if you've been around here, you know I love my garlic press, so I'm gonna keep things easy and just squeeze it on in. Okay, last. Oh, now we'll let that garlic cook down for a few minutes. Oh, it's already smelling so good. The final step is we're gonna add the fresh thyme. I like to add it just at the very end and let it cook for only a minute so it stays really vibrant. Since the mushrooms are really hearty and savory, this adds a nice brightness. The crostini are nice and crisp, so the final step is to take that cheese and we're gonna get it all nice and melty. So place a little dollop on each crostini as well as you can. This worked out pretty well. So now we're just gonna stick them under the broiler for a couple minutes, again, just to get that cheese super nice and melty. Don't take your eyes off them though, because you don't want them to burn. This is what dreams are made of, crispy bread and melty cheese. But just wait, it's time to top them now. So just grab a spoon, and all you've got to do is just gently, so they don't fall everywhere, top with our mushroom mixture. Wish you could smell this. It just smells so good. You could garnish with a little chopped parsley, more fresh thyme, but I like to add just a little microgreens because they feel extra special and they're gorgeous. Plus their freshness really balances out all the savoriness. All right, I gotta dig in. Oh, so cute. Let's try it. Okay, first off, the crunchy crostini and the melty cheese, perfection. And that mushroom mixture, it's savory, it's hearty, and it's so flavorful. I've also served the mushroom mixture as a dip in itself and just used little crostini or crackers as a dip for parties. This is the perfect appetizer to take on Thanksgiving or Christmas because it is so savory and it has all those warm, wintry fall flavors in it, thanks to the fresh thyme, really. It's just so good. Find all these recipes at forkinthekitchen.com. I've linked them below for you, and I will see you back here next week for another meatless meal that everyone will love. Like, I'm like, great, and then I'm like, whoa. I mean, I don't think if you got...